morning, everybody. Tushita extends a very warm welcome to all of you, and it's a great pleasure and honor to have with us Venerable Tenzin Namdak. A little bit of introduction about Venerable. Tenzin has been an environmental researcher before he took the Bhikkhu ordination from His Holiness in 1996. And in 1997, he started his formal studies in Buddhist philosophy, psychology, phenomenology, and epistemology at the Sera Jey Monastery, Bylakuppe, South India. Now he is on the verge of finishing his Geshe degree, which is equivalent to, the doctorate that we have in our universities. He teaches at several FPMT centers in the world and is the director of Shedrup Sungdrel Ling, a house for Western monk students. We welcome him once again and request him to teach on the topic of mindful meditation for busy professionals.
Hello. So before I start, I just do a short praise to Buddha Sakyamuni, yes, being a Buddhist monk. So there's a praise actually by Nagarjuna. You see here one of the Nalanda Pandits. We actually praise the teachings of the Buddha, and then especially the teachings on dependent origination and emptiness, as being taught by the Buddha. And this tradition, as we, from the Tibetan tradition, so to say, actually is all based on the Indian universities like Nalanda, Vikramashila, Takshila. So that kind of teachings, that's where we come from. So then today, mindfulness for, for business professionals or non-business professionals, doesn't matter. So basically, mindfulness is very popular in the world. And why is it popular? Because, especially in the West, even it can be also done in in a kind of secular way. So it doesn't have to be religion or faith. So in that way, also here, maybe there's Buddhists around the people here, or maybe even other followers of other faiths or religion. That's perfectly fine. Or maybe people who not have any religion at all. That's also perfectly fine. So the Buddhist teaching basically is meant to benefit, right? It's not to convert people, but to benefit. So that's why I'm here also, try to benefit if possible. But so this mindfulness meditation is very popular in the West. Why? Because it works. So science, especially healthcare, is very interested in this kind of science of the mind, so to say. And why is that so? Because there's many scientists in the West, neuroscientists, there are behavior scientists, psychologists, who had done a lot of research regarding this kind of mindfulness meditation, either from the Tibetan tradition or from the Theravada tradition. So there's a lot of similarity between those traditions regarding this mindfulness meditation. And they find out actually that health improves, not only mental health, but also physical health. So there's a relation between body and mind. So there's been proven, I don't know, probably you're familiar with the books of Daniel Coleman, Emotional Intelligence, which uses a lot of kind of basics of the mindfulness meditation coming from either our tradition or Theravada tradition. So then how does it work? That's the question. That's for us the most important thing. It works, that's been proven by scientists, it's interesting, but the question is how does it work and how does it benefit us? And so that's the main topic of the talk today. So mindfulness basically helps us, this kind of meditation helps us. We will do after maybe, let's say 40 minutes, we also will do a short meditation together, that we get a little bit of experience of what it is all about. So why mindfulness meditation and why is it beneficial? I think because most people, especially in a modern society, the mind is so occupied with all kind of distractions. So people actually don't know if they're happy or not, or if they're satisfied with life or not. Many people They don't even ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Or, you know, how do I become more happier human being? Or is it possible to become happier than I'm right now? Yeah, so that's questions most people doesn't even come to mind. Yeah, so why is it so? Because, you know, as you know, we have a lot of distraction from, especially in modern society, from early morning till late evening. You know, distraction of TV, the media, social media especially, you know, the Facebook websites and news, etc., etc. So it's easy to get distracted from early morning till late evening. Yeah. So, and then average person in the West and in modern India wakes up. You know, it's too late already, and then has a quick breakfast in front of the news or reading a newspaper and check your email on the side, and then in traffic to the office, and then doing the job, and then come back home, and then you're tired and you want to eat dinner in front of the TV set or something else, and then you fall asleep. You know, that's a very common kind of day out of life from an ordinary being. So many people are the mind is distracted to external kind of conditions. Yeah, so there's no knowledge of the inner world or the inner mind. Yeah, so that's lacking, and that actually triggers or can trigger a kind of non-awareness. Yeah, so people are not aware of what's going on inside the mind. If you're not aware of what's going on inside in the mind, then it's easy for the mind to be led by all kind of afflictions or destructive emotions. Yeah, like anger, attachment, ignorance, jealousy, pride, anxiety, fear, you know. So that happens with people, and without being mindful of what is happening. Yeah? So some people, they have to have a kind of life experience of losing a person in life, or a difficulty, or a depression, or a sickness, to basically wake up of what actually his life is all about. Yeah? So for myself, some people say, "Oh, you're so interested in Buddhism and became a monk so early in life. You must be very depressed, or you must be very sad kind of youth period." That was not the case. It was just interest, basically, yeah, from the beginning. But for some people, can be a reason to go into a spiritual path. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that. So then they have to build up this kind of an awareness. Yeah, what actually is going on inside the mind? Because without this awareness, what happens is our mind is just following sometimes negative thoughts or following destructive emotions, yeah, without actually knowing the possibility for control or possibility to, you know, subdue the mind and become a happy human being. Yeah, so what are these destructive emotions? What are those things that actually disturbs our mind and gives us suffering? Yeah, so like I just mentioned, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride. Yeah, they're actually classified in the Buddhist philosophy as negative mental factors or afflictions. Yeah, or in psychology we call them destructive emotions. Yeah? So we have main minds, we are quite neutral by itself, and we have mental factors. Yeah? So those mental factors can either be positive or negative or neutral. Yeah, they can influence the main mind. So our main mind by itself is luminous, is clear and knowing. Yeah? So like the blue sky. So the destructive emotions are like the clouds. Yeah? So the clouds are not an innate part of the main mind. Right? They're not an innate part of the blue sky. Yeah? So even if it's cloudy, you take a plane and you go above the clouds and the blue sky is still there. Right? So that's very similar with our mind. Yeah? So these destructive emotions, they are not an innate part of the mind. They're just temporarily there. Yeah? So that actually gives us a sign that they can be eliminated. They can be taken away. So happiness can be achieved. Yeah? That's the question. First of all, very logical, when the Buddha also taught, the first teaching the Buddha gave in Varanasi, in Sanat, Sanat is close to Varanasi, he taught the Four Noble Truths, yeah, so we know the truth of suffering. So very, very skillful way of actually learning or let people awake that actually there's not ultimate satisfaction in life. Yeah? So there is a better opportunity to experience more happiness, because that's actually the two main aims in life is achieving happiness and not wanting suffering, right? I think that's quite a common kind of thing we all strive for. But the means how we obtain those aims in life, that's the question. Yeah? So many people have a little bit of wrong idea in this world about what are the causes for happiness, or what are the causes for suffering, and that we can learn easily from the media. Famous, wealthy people. If you know their actually a daily life, then you can see they're being, not really the ultimate satisfied person in life. Yeah? We all know, even the famous pop stars, they made songs similar to these kind of aspects of, the Rolling Stones. I can get no satisfaction, and U2, what is it? I haven't found what I'm looking for. I think it was U2, the Irish pop group. So there's many wealthy, famous people, because the majority of society thinks economical growth and wealth brings happiness to the people in the society. But actually, the question is if that's really true or not. So in Bhutan, for example, they have a totally different approach. A Buddhist country who thinks more about the happiness of the people in the country. So there was a discussion once in England, in the government, about that. Very interesting. That actually, first we have to define what happiness is, and then we have to apply it. How can we help society to achieve that? Very interesting. So basically, what is happiness? Right? There's one question. So happiness is a mental experience. Yeah, it's a very subjective kind of experience of an individual. Yeah, so it's an experience of the mind. It's not an experience of as we know, external conditions. Though we need certain conditions in life to have a comfortable life, but those external conditions are not really giving us the real satisfaction we're looking for. Yeah, we need the outer development of society as well as the inner development. Yeah, so in most cultures and most societies, the outer development, they strive to develop that, or is maybe already very much developed, but the inner development is lacking. Yeah, so then this kind of mindfulness meditation comes into the picture. Yeah, so then we saw that afflictions like anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, they like the clouds in the sky, right? So they can be eliminated. Yeah. So we also have to see how actually those destructive emotions cause our life, to be not totally full of satisfaction. That they cause a certain time of suffering. Yeah. So that we can easily see with an affliction like anger, for example. Yeah, that your mind gets totally disturbed, and based on this kind of emotion, you might act in a negative verbal, physical way to another person. Yeah? So the clue is to be aware of those afflictions, of those destructive emotions. Know what are the definitions, what is the function of this particular affliction, and how does it come up? What are the triggers? What triggers it? So those things are very important. So that you can study, you can, from your own experience, examine. Yeah? So then next step is kind of awareness we have to build up. Yeah, so awareness of the afflictions. Yeah, so that can only be done with a mind that is peaceful, with a mind that is quiet, a mind that can analyze. Otherwise the mind is just occupied by those afflictions, and there's no hope for yourself to work on it. So the majority of the people, they cannot even just, many people in the world, they cannot just sit still and work with the inner world. Outer world very easy, sitting behind a computer and internet for hours and hours, no problem, But just sitting still for a few minutes and just see how the mind functions is very difficult. There was an interesting research in the American Scientific American research regarding letting people sit still in a room on a chair with nothing, just an empty room, no mobile phone, no internet, nothing. 15 minutes only, 15 minutes. The women did much better than the men, but most of the men, I think until sometimes 60%, they couldn't stand sitting there. And they choose, very, very strange. They needed distraction, so they could choose between a slight electric shock in the leg or just sitting still. And more than 60% choose for the shock to get a little bit of a distraction. Very, very sad. Yeah. So there's proven research that people can't sit still and reflect anymore. So it's a bit sad. So that's a sign that people with that kind of difficulty to go to the inner world, then it's very difficult to really know what's going on inside the mind. So we need to build up a kind of awareness of this inner world. Yeah, that's very important. Otherwise you will never really recognize what are afflictions, what causes me happiness, what causes me suffering. so the majority of the people in the world, they don't have this kind of awareness. So how do we do that awareness? Yeah, so we need, what I said, we need a peaceful, quiet mind, like a lake. I remember when I was young, my parents took me to Austria in the Alps. There's beautiful lakes in the mountains, and then early morning is like a mirror, It's very, very, you can see the mountains reflecting and the clouds and the sky, everything beautiful. So that's a very beautiful lake. Then also, my father once took me on a boat on the North Sea, in Holland. I come from the Netherlands, and we have a North Sea which is sometimes very rough. So we went once with the wind force, 6, 7, maybe 8 even. It's very, like, the clouds were, or not clouds, the waves were like buildings, that are high, and the boat was quite small. So sometimes you see like a 4-story building next to you of water, and then you go up. So very scary. So that in that ocean, our mind, when it's disturbed by afflictions, is similar. Nothing reflects. There's no awareness, So it's sometimes a nice example. So then we have to come to a state of mind that can actually analyze these types of mind, what is positive, what is negative. So that we use kind of mindfulness meditation. So that's why maybe we said busy professionals, because busy professionals, they need, and they're looking for these kind of methods to get some kind of peace of mind in life. So maybe that's why the title. Anyway, but So how do we come to that awareness? So that awareness we do with a kind of breathing exercise, counting of the breath. There's many techniques. But the most simple one, and also the most secular one, not specifically a Buddhist or whatsoever, is just counting of the breath. So very simplified method, though not easy. So what do we do there? Is we count the breath from 1 to 10. So every in-breath as 1, out-breath as 2. So what happens then is that we learn to concentrate. And another aspect of breathing is when it's on a natural way, it's very it calms down the mind. So sometimes true, if you're a little bit uptight or something, you take a deep breath and it relaxes the mind. So that's also why this technique is very profound. And even emotions, they are related with also breathing. People with a lot of anxiety or something that's more, the breath is much quicker and that can be seen. So actually there's a relationship between body and mind. So while doing these breathing exercises, then there's more awareness being built, and by more awareness, there's more happiness of the mind. Peace of mind can be gained. And based on this, you can start with other mind trainings. So this mindfulness meditation of the breath we're going to do today is a tool. It's not an ultimate method, so to say. So it helps us to get some peace of mind, and it helps us to be aware of those afflictions or destructive emotions. So we're going to do that. And so first of all, that's their awareness. We have to know what's going on inside the mind. So that's when we do the breathing. And then based on this awareness, we have to recognize. We have to learn what is shining like in that lake and what is going around in my mind. Without having that quietness and peace of mind is very difficult. First you have to have that kind of awareness. Then after that awareness, we have a kind of, you can call self-discipline, or learning how to subdue the mind. So in the Buddhist doctrine, the Buddha taught how to subdue the mind in different ways. So if you read Daniel Goleman's books, for example, Emotional Intelligence, many conclusions is actually subduing the mind brings happiness. So also the Buddha said, abandon, one of the prayers on sutras also, try to abandon non-virtue and practice virtue. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So subdue your mind thoroughly, meaning actually completely subduing the mind brings peace and happiness. It can bring nirvana. So that's from the Buddhist perspective. Very similar. So then we have to, based on this kind of self-awareness, we actually learn those destructive emotions, and we learn that to recognize what do they do. Normally we're not aware of it. So we learn actually how these destructive emotions cause this disturbance of mind. That's very important, because the Buddha's first teaching was the truth of suffering. So knowing suffering, and the second was the cause of suffering. So if you're sick, you go to a doctor, analyze the nature of the sickness. Next step, what is the cause of the sickness, right? And then after that, the question comes: can I get cured or not? Is it possible to get cured. If it's not possible to get cured, then you don't have to worry. You can still worry, but you don't have to look for means to get better, right? So then we see the possibility with these kind of aspects that we just talked about. So those destructive emotions, they basically they are a cause for suffering. They disturb our mind. A person with very agitated with anger, for example, the mind is not clear at that time. So they make the wrong decision, and maybe there's some verbal abuse or maybe even physical abuse. That happens. So they're suffering for self and others. And this affliction like anger, for example, and the same thing with attachment, jealousy and pride, they disturb the mind. That is actually one of the definitions given in most of the scriptures of what an affliction is. What its function is actually, it causes disturbance of the mind. So it's similar to the ocean or the sea totally being disturbed in comparison to the lake. It's a quiet lake, you think. So it disturbs the mind, that we can see from an experience from our own point of view. So those afflictions, one aspect is it disturbs the mind. Another aspect, you lose the clarity of the mind. You make the wrong decision. And another aspect of those afflictions is not real. It's not in accordance with reality. All the destructive emotions are not in accordance with reality. For example, if you get uptight or angry at a particular person or situation, that mind only focuses upon the faults, the negative aspects of that object. And then if you're a person you're uptight with or you get angry at, and you say, this person is bad because of this. Then your friend comes and says, but this person also has qualities like this. No. You don't like to hear even, So that's a sign, though that person has qualities, right? It's not that it can be a dearest friend of somebody else, right? What we call, so to say, enemy. So you don't like to hear that. So that state of the affliction or mental factor, anger, basically, is not in accordance with reality, because it sees that object only from one aspect. For example, same thing, if you have a depression or whatsoever, you're down for some time, you see everything with the dark sunglasses, right? And then you're out of the depression, and then you see the sun shining again. But actually, the outer world was the same, It's just temporarily you saw it differently, So that's actually very subjective, related to how we see the world and how we see persons. So this with the afflictions even more the case. So first we have this mindfulness of being aware, and then we analyze what those afflictions actually do. They actually disturb the mind and causes negative physical or verbal behavior. So why is that so? Because every act we're doing, if we talk about things with people or in a physical way we engage in relation with others, initially there's always a mental attitude or motivation or intention, right, before we do something. So, and those destructive emotions, that's why they call destructive, because they can cause a lot of suffering for the people who have them and to the objects of their afflictions. So, for example, we in Bangalore, it's just been announced that there's a center also from this organization called Choe Khor Sum Ling, and we also do some social services like going to a center prison in Bangalore, giving talks. And one day it was really interesting. The first time I went to the prison, I was very afraid because if you have prisons in the West, US or Europe, they're very, very high security. And police, they carry very heavy weapons, So the first time I went, I was a bit scared. But that central prison in Bangalore is quite amazing in the sense that inside, there's a few doors, of course they have to have security. And then they give you a stamp like this size, that you can go out again, otherwise you cannot go out anymore, like this size stamp. And then, very traditional. And then then you go inside, and then the first time they send a guard with us, the first time we went in. Second time, the place, okay. So you just walk, we go to all the fences, all the doors, and then just walk. It's like, it's not really a park, but it's all quite open, Of course, there's a big fence around it. And I thought, why is the police? And looking, and there was like 2 or 3 police I saw in the far distance, so just with a stick, Very interesting. Anyway, so sometimes violence happens in the prison, they told us, but generally speaking, quite peaceful place. So, so then, so then one of the inmates, he was sitting there for murder basically. So he told me, he said, I made a mistake for 10 minutes. My mind was not in control. I made a mistake, So then you see that's not a person. He's a very nice person, but he was not in control of anger at that time. So that's very, very, very good teaching. For me, it was very good teaching to hear that. Very interesting that a person like that just honestly say, that's what afflictions do. Basically, very interesting. For us, same thing in the Buddhist doctrine. Samsara is same thing. You do something what we call non-virtuous, and you're stuck in suffering for some time. Very similar. Yeah. So it is a nice example to relate to what afflictions actually do, and also they disturb the mind of the person who has those afflictions. So, with the more heavy criminals in society, you can see they have a kind of emotional hijack, as they call it in psychology. That there's no control over their mind. There's no awareness. If there's no awareness of their own mind, forget how to think about others. So there's no awareness from themselves. There's no feeling for themselves. If there's no feeling for themselves, then they don't know how other people feel about different things. So then they commit all kind of crimes. So it's really dependent on the mind. Very interesting. So if in the Buddhist doctrine it says everything depends on the mind, samsara and nirvana. If you achieve happiness or depression or suffering or physical or whatever, it's really, you can see many things is very, very directly related with the mind. Yeah?